Welcome to the Language Alchemy podcast, where we transform how you communicate to create the life and relationships you truly want. I'm your host, Alejandra Siroka, and I help multicultural individuals, couples, and change makers move beyond surface level politeness and conflict avoidance to have authentic, value-based interactions that actually resolve issues and deepen connection. If you're tired of rehashing conversations in your head, walking on eggshells, or feeling misunderstood in your most important relationships, this podcast will give you a new way forward. And if you've been thinking about getting support with your communication, visit languagealchemy.com to find out which transformative communication program is most beneficial for you. Today marks the beginning of something I've been wanting to create for a long time. And it's a topic that's rooted in three values: love, integrity, and bravery. This is a series that requires all those three values in every episode and also great vulnerability to share it with you. I'm calling this new Language Alchemy series Multicultural Communication and Belonging. And this is the first episode of the series. This is actually the longest series I have recorded in the 5 years the Language Alchemy podcast has been around. This series has 9 episodes, and we are going to explore how we communicate across cultures and how communication either opens doors to belonging or it closes them. This series is for you if you ever moved to a new place or a new country and you felt the invisible effort of trying to fit in. It is also for you if your parents came from somewhere else and you've watched them navigate 2 worlds at once. It is also for you if you've ever wanted to communicate more skillfully with the people in your life who come from a different cultural background or who have different subcultures, which, by the way, it is most people. And in fact, this series is for all of us because in one way or another, we've all been on both sides of belonging. Now, before I tell you where we're going together, I want to begin where these series really start for me, because this is not simply a podcast topic. This is personal. I was 15 years old the first time I came to the United States. I was part of an international student exchange program traveling from Argentina with a group of teenagers. All of us were between 15 and 18 years old, and we had adult chaperones as well. Each of us has been placed with an American host family. We were enrolled in a public school, and we were given what I can only describe as a crash course in cultural survival. Before we left Argentina, we had about a 3-day training. And I remember that one of the trainers said something that has stayed with me ever since. She said, "We've done these trips for years, and the kids who succeed the most, those who come back saying that they had a great time, that they had fun, and that they truly felt like they belonged, are the ones who were able to adapt, to stay open. They were the ones who met the culture where it was." And then she gave us very specific instructions. When you see your host family, don't run to them, walk. Don't kiss anyone on the cheek. Even though in Argentina, a kiss on the cheek is how we say hello, how we say goodbye, how we say nice to meet you, but not in this case. She also said no hugging unless they initiated. And if they put their hand out, shake it, make eye contact, and say, "Nice to meet you." Now, in Argentina, physical affection is woven into how we communicate warmth. A kiss on the cheek means Hello, I see you. You matter. You are welcome here. And so at 15, this guidance felt a little strange, but I took it to heart. A few days after we arrived in New York City, where we spent some time adjusting to the time difference, a bus took us to Massachusetts to meet our host families. I remember pulling into a school parking lot and seeing people waiting there. Some of them were holding signs with our names. And then I saw my name, Alejandra. And when I did, my heart did something between excitement and a little bit of terror. And then I quietly repeated the instructions to myself. Don't run, walk. Don't kiss anybody on the cheek. Make eye contact, shake hands, say, nice to meet you. I stepped off the bus and immediately 4 people came running towards me, calling my name, Alejandra, Alejandra. And before I could say or do anything at all, they pulled me into big hugs and gave me kisses on my cheeks. And I was completely bewildered. I hugged them back, instinctively. And then I remembered I put my hand out and I shook everyone's hand and I said, nice to meet you. Weeks later, once we were really getting to know each other, I told my host family about the training I received in Buenos Aires and the no running, no kissing, shake hands, eye contact instructions. They explained that they had already hosted exchange students from Argentina. And so they knew about the greeting customs and they wanted me to feel welcome with them from the very first moment. So, see, they had chosen to meet me in my culture, just like I was trying to meet them in theirs. We both adapted. We both reached toward each other and we met in an integrated space. That gesture made one of the deepest impressions of my young life. At that time, when I was 15, I had no idea that one day I would make the United States my home. And almost 40 years later, I can't believe it's almost 40 years. Yes, almost 40 years later, I am still in touch with that family, the Hines in Western Massachusetts. And I think about them often when I think about what belonging really looks like. Not as something that happens to you, but as something you choose to offer. Belonging is a universal human need. Every one of us wants it. Every one of us longs for it. And yet, it is not automatic, especially in our current world in which we are in contact with people from different cultural backgrounds, languages, ways of seeing and experiencing the world. I see it in my work as a transformative communication teacher and coach that most of us were not taught to communicate across differences intentionally. We were given the communication tools to communicate within our own cultures and subcultures. The way our family greeted one another, the way a specific community we grew up in showed respect, the way our school or our teachers rewarded certain kind of speaking and penalized others. The topics we talk about and how we talk about them and with whom we discuss them. And that is what we have learned, what we have been taught. But then we are in this world that is far more complex and far more beautiful, far richer, and far more multi-layered than any single cultural framework can hold. And today, this conversation feels urgent. Our world is more diverse than it has ever been in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, our schools, and in our families. And yet, at the same time, we are seeing currents of thought that stoke fear about that very diversity. Voices that speak of diversity as a threat rather than a gift. And I believe each of us has a role to play in addressing those voices that are instilling fear, not with arguments or shame, but with love, curiosity, and a genuine desire to understand. Diversity in culture, in language, in perspectives, in the ways we live and communicate is one of the greatest sources of richness in our shared human experience on this planet. Being open to different cultures, different ways of seeing, different ways of relating to life really allows us to innovate, to integrate, to find new options, to create, to open our minds, to explore new ways and collaborate so that we can contribute to one another. To me, belonging, understanding, and connection are worth showing up for. And that is what this series is about. The Multicultural Communication and Belonging is a language alchemy series, which means that we are going to approach everything here as an awareness practice, as a transformative communication approach, and as a form of evolutionary activism. We are not going to approach it as a blame practice or a shame practice. We're not here to point fingers. We are here to get curious, to look honestly and lovingly at the ways we communicate with one another, particularly across cultural lines. We are going to notice what opens the doors to belonging and what closes them. Let me give you a glimpse of the journey ahead in this series. In our next episode, we are going to begin with the immigrant experience itself, what it actually costs emotionally and linguistically to navigate life in a culture that isn't the one you were born into. From there, we are going to explore how our cultural backgrounds shape the way we communicate, not just the words we choose, but our rhythm, our silences, our relationship to eye contact, to touch, to directness or subtlety, what we talk about and how we talk about things. We are going to ask ourselves what happens when two people are having the same conversation in completely different languages, even when they're both speaking English. Then we're going to look honestly at xenophobic language, the harmful words and phrases that push people to the margins, often without the speaker even realizing that's what they're doing. After that, we are going to talk about microaggressive communication, the kind of statements and questions that sound like curiosity and even like friendliness, but they carry an othering message underneath. And we're going to look at questions that say, without meaning to, you are not quite from here. You do not belong. Then we are going to have a special interview episode dedicated to accent and how English speakers and non-English speakers can truly understand each other and what gets in the way. After that, we are going to explore unconscious biases many of us carry about immigrants. We're going to examine those biases and how they quietly or loudly live in our language. Then we are going to talk about what belonging actually looks and feels like in practice, and the communication choices, the big and small ones, that create that sense of belonging. And finally, we're going to close the series with one of the frameworks I find most powerful and hopeful. It is the practice of calling in, inspired by the brilliant Loretta Ross, whose work I deeply admire. So, this is going to be quite a journey of rich, honest, and I hope deeply useful conversations. And I'm so grateful to be in this journey with you. Now, as with every Language Alchemy podcast episode, you will have a communication tool in every episode of the series. And now let's look at our first communication tool. I said before that belonging is a universal human need and that it's not a given. Now, here's something I have come to understand working with so many people. When it comes to belonging, we are all responsible for communicating in two directions. In one way that helps us belong, and also in ways that create space for others to belong with us. Just as the Heinz did for me that evening in Massachusetts in that parking lot, and just as I, in my earnest 15-year-old way, was trying to do for them. So here's the tool for you this week. It is an invitation to reflect on two questions. And as you're reflecting on them, you can take them on a walk with you, because I know some of you listen to the podcast when you're walking. You can write about them, because I know so many of you have a practice of journaling. You can sit with them and simply reflect on them over your morning chai as you're starting the day after your meditation practice. So here's the first question. How do you communicate to help yourself belong? What do you say? What do you offer? How do you show your openness to being part of someone else's world? And the second question is, how do you communicate to create belonging for others? What choices do you make in your words, your greetings, your questions, your body language, the way you introduce people, the way you address a room, if that's something you need to do, to let someone know you are welcome here. I see you. You belong. So those two questions. How are you communicating to help yourself belong? And how are you communicating to create the space for others to feel welcome to belong to your world? And if you are on my mailing list, you have my email, and I would truly love to hear how you answer these two questions. You know that I respond to every single email. And if you're not on my mailing list, go to languagealchemy.com, sign up there, and then you are going to receive right in your inbox once a week on a Wednesday or a Friday, transformative communication tools you can put into practice right away to have meaningful relationships. And now let's recap what you've heard in this episode. I talked about my story when I was 15 years old as an exchange student, stepping off a bus in Massachusetts, prepared to adapt to a host family, only to be met by a host family who had chosen to adapt to me. And that moment of mutual reaching, two cultures moving towards each other at the same time, shaped me forever. We also explored why belonging is not something automatic, especially across cultures. And we talked about why, in a world that is growing both more beautifully diverse and more fearful of that diversity, conscious communication is crucial. I then gave you a little preview of the journey ahead in the series. And at the end, I offered you a communication tool. an invitation to reflect on the two directions of belonging: how you communicate to help yourself belong, and how you communicate to create space for others to belong with you. Thank you so much for being here from the very beginning of the Multicultural Communication and Belonging series. In our next episode, we are going to talk about the immigrant experience and what it truly means to communicate across cultures when the stakes are high and the distance feels wide. Until then, keep noticing, keep reflecting, keep choosing your words with love and with intention. And as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao. Original music by Gary Lapau. You can find all links in the show notes at languagealchemy.com.